Okay, kids, so it's kind of been a while since I've done any video whatsoever. I think it's been like a little bit over a week. I don't know, but today I have something a little different for you, and as you probably saw from the title, I entitled this Cheesy Romance Novel Theater, I guess. So, basically, what's going on is I bought a cheesy romance book because I was bored and it was cheap and I had nothing better to do. And I kind of ended up doing this project on accident because I bought the book, I started reading it, then I was reminded how bad these books were, and so I just started criticizing a lot of the book, and it just turned out into becoming this. So I read this entire book front to back. I read this entire book front to back, and I wrote notes. And I just hope that you will enjoy this little journey into Harlequin American romance novel theater together. Like, just enjoy it with me. The book that I am reviewing slash kind of tearing apart is Daddy's Little Dividend by Elda Minger. I don't know what a dividend is, so that doesn't make any sense. And Daddy's? Like, why is it Daddy? Okay, no lie though, the reason, let me scoot up a little bit. The reason why I got this book was because, why I chose this book was just look at the cover. Just look at that. Hopefully look at this cover. So you have the guy shirtless with like dark hair and the girl just staring up at him. But like, okay, when I zoom into like the faces of it, it's not focusing, but it's just really bad because the chick in this picture has a very like face, like, oh god, I don't want to be here right now type face. Like, she's not enjoying this whatsoever. It's bad. Also, like, another thing that I wanted to point out is like these pillows, these pink ruffled fluffy pillows. Like, I'm sorry, but even if a guy was married, I highly doubt he would allow these pillows in the bedroom. Like, you can tell that these are total chick pillows. I'm just saying. But anyways, that's the reason why I picked this book, because it had cheesy cover and like the back seemed kind of like what was written on the back was kind of interesting, I guess. So anyways, on to the review. And honestly, this is going to be a long video because I talk a lot and I like explaining and I have lots of details and stuff, and that's just how I am. So this is how I'm going to review this delightful novel of total believability and totally likable, understandable, multi-dimensional characters. I'm just going to go chapter by chapter and just do it like that. And, little warning, so with this book, it's just the chapter structure is really bad. So it just goes back and forth between the past and the present a lot, and not like a couple chapters in the past, couple chapters in the present. It's chapter 1, present, chapter 2, past, chapter 3, present, chapter 4, past, and like it keeps on going like that. And it's kind of hard to keep up with sometimes, and it's like, I feel like I'm reading two different stories. When I read this, it's like, I feel like it was supposed to be two different books, but then each book was so small that the author was just like, oh, I'm just gonna make it in one book, but then she like cut and pasted all the chapters and just threw them together. And that's just how it feels, and it's really hard to keep up with, but like, I'll just brace yourself, guys. It's gonna be a long time. But the whole gist of this book is the guy, Luke, he's a businessman, and the chick in the story, her name is Natalie, she's a model. So Natalie finds out she's pregnant. However, Luke has always said that he never really wanted kids. So like, it's her trying to figure out how she's gonna tell him, pretty much. So, yeah. So, we start off this delightful book with the sentence, "Darling, you're gonna be a daddy." And right there, if you didn't know from like the cheesy cheesy cover, you know that you're just in for a lot of cheese. But, like, that's just, yeah. So Natalie finds out she's pregnant, and she tries to figure out, oh, how am I going to tell him? Okay, so I'm going to make a really nice fancy dinner for my... They're not husband and wife, they're boyfriend and girlfriend, but they've been together for 4 years, like, living together and stuff. Like, so she just tries to figure out, oh, how am I going to tell him? I'm going to make a nice little fancy dinner for my boyfriend, and I'm going to tell him somehow. And he doesn't show up for dinner, like, even though she told him a week in advance, and, like, I can attest to this, that would really piss me off. But rather than staying in their home, which is in Denver, Colorado, rather than staying at their home in Denver, Colorado, she gets, like, super pissed off, and she goes to the cabin in the woods that they have together conveniently. They conveniently have this beautiful cabin in the woods in Fairplay, Colorado. I don't even really know if that's a real place, but that's the name of the small town that they have their cabin in. Just... So, like... Yeah, everyone has an extra house, but she leaves a note, and when Luke comes back to the house, he's like, oh my gosh, where's Natalie? Then he finds a note, and the note says, like, hey, I need some time to think, please, like, just, I went to the cabin in the woods that we have together, because everyone has an extra house in the woods, so I just need time alone, don't follow me. So the bastard decides to follow her into the woods. Into the woods. The guy decides to just follow her, and, yeah, that's how chapter 1 ends. But, like, okay, chapter 1, we get to meet this guy, Otis. He's, like, a father figure to Natalie, and I will say that I genuinely liked him as a character. I, like, thought he was interesting, and he, yeah. So that's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2. This is, okay, so this is, like, so chapter 2 opens up 4 years ago in the past. So... Luke sees a magazine, and he sees her picture in this magazine, and he's like, oh wow, she's really, really pretty. I would like to be with her. And so he finds out that she's going to be at this charity auction. He gets an invitation to said charity auction, and while he's there, he convinces, like, the main leader lady of this auction to, like, auction off dances. So, like, all the women will stand up on stage, and, like, if you win the auction, you get a dance with her. So... he pays $1,000 to dance with her. It was for charity, though. And as they were dancing, she falls in love. Because, you know, it takes one dance to fall in love with a person. Yeah. So, okay, so after this dance, they go on a date, and the date basically lasts for an entire day. And then, like, as they're hanging out, he's like, hey, I'm going to this barbecue at Henry Winston's house. You want to come? And that right there made me laugh, because it's like, don't you mean Harry Winston? The jeweler person? Like, I don't know if Harry Winston is an actual person. I just know that he's associated with, like, fine jewelry. But, like, really? You can't say Harry Winston because you're gonna get sued or something? But yeah, just, like, I see that the author's trying to, like, make us think of class and awesomeness, but, like, that was kind of a cheap cop-out. So, at this barbecue, she, like her modeling agency manager was there, and her manager's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a job in Paris for you, you should go. So she takes a job in Paris, and, like, this job is super important, and it changes her career. Just, like, throughout this book, it's like Natalie, just, it's one good thing after another, honestly. That's how it is. But, yeah, kind of a side note, they kind of remind me of Big and Carrie from Sex and the City. Big is an older, mysterious... I'll admit, he's kind of sexy, even though he's, like, an asshole most of the time. Like, Big is, like, this older, sexy businessman in Carrie's life. Carrie is a younger, naive woman. Carrie's naive. You don't want me to rant about that. But anyways, so, like, it just kind of reminded me of their relationship a little bit. So, anyways, like, yeah. So, Luke is a mysterious, older businessman. Natalie's, like, young, and she's pretty innocent and, like, naive. But anywho, so when they met, he's 36 and she's 23, making him 40 and her 27 during the present time. So anyways, the chapter ends with her going on this fantastic modeling job in Paris, because that just happens all the time. So, chapter 3, we're back at the cabin, and Luke's now, like, entered into the cabin, and she's, like, happy to see him, even though she was like, no, don't follow me. But, like, maybe that happens in relationships, where, like, when someone's like, no, I don't want you to bother me, what they're really saying is, hey, I want you to follow me. But, like, in my experience, that's not ever really the case. It's a romance book, bro. So, Luke is like, well, you're sick, so you should see the doctor. And then we get introduced to the character of Doc, who is also, like, a father figure to Natalie. And he is the doctor for the entire town, because it's a very, very small town. And, okay, so I thought that this was kind of a good quote. So, Natalie's talking to Doc, and she's just saying, like, you know, Doc is like, why haven't you told him that you're pregnant? And Natalie just says, but he doesn't want babies. Babies are one thing, Natalie, but your baby is another. Which, like, kind of cheesy, but I thought that was a very good point, because I feel like a lot of times people are scared. Like, a woman might get pregnant and she's scared to tell her significant other, but, like, there's a difference between, like, someone else's kids and, like, your kids. Like, I don't know. I really don't know how that works, honestly, so I thought that was a cool quote, I guess. So, yeah, that's how that chapter ends. And so now we're in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is in the past. Now we're in Paris. And, like, you know, she does a runway show, and much to my surprise, she did so amazing and awesome at this show, and everyone loved her. So, like, after the show, Luke and Natalie decide to go for a walk. It's night, and it's drizzling. And she's just so cold that she just, like, presses her body against his for warmth. And, like, this is, like, when they have sex. So, no, they don't have sex in this chapter, but they get really close to it. But it's really descriptive in this chapter. And, like, part of me was like, well, it took you long enough to get here, but whatever. But so, basically, like, they're walking around, and he finds this it just says a darkened doorway, which made no sense to me whatsoever at the time. But, like, they're in this darkened doorway, and they basically, like, they almost have sex. I remember with the darkened doorway part, like, I had to, like, go back and forth between the book to make sure that they were still in that doorway, which, like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why couldn't you wait to get to the hotel or something? So they make out, and there's lots of foreplay, and, like, they almost have sex, but, like, right before, like, it says that he was gonna put it inside of her, like, the author is like, by the way, she's a virgin, or, like, writes in, Natalie's a virgin, and I'm sitting here like, really? You couldn't have said that a couple chapters ago? You couldn't have said, like, really simply in a sentence, this was the man she lost her virginity to? But no, like, it really felt like last minute, like, the author threw it in there, like, oh, this is a good idea, and just threw in, like, by the way, she's a virgin. And I was like, wow, that was very abrupt. Elda Minger. But, like, yeah, since she's a virgin, as he was about, like, I guess he, like, yeah, as he was about to put it in or something, she cries out in pain because it hurt her. And then, like, they both look at each other, and he stops. Even though, like, it was a very descriptive chapter that I'm not going to get into. But, like, yeah. So, oh, another thing that was really confusing was, like, who was wearing his coat? Was he wearing his coat? Was she wearing the coat? Were they both wearing the coat? Was the coat big enough to hold, like, both of them in together? Because someone was wearing a coat. I think she was. It was really confusing, and it just didn't make any sense. So, yeah. So after, like, Luke finds out that Natalie's a virgin because she, like, cried out in pain when he was about to put her penis inside of her, he stops and, like, he tries to, like, bring her back to her hotel, but she's like, no, I want to go back to your hotel with you. And out of guilt, she's like, And by the way, his hotel room is really fancy, and there's like 2 different bedrooms in his hotel suite, which doesn't make any sense to me, but fine. But yeah, like in the hotel suite, like she wants to do it, but he's like, no. Because if we're going to do it together, I don't want you just for one, like if it's going to be your first time, I don't want it to be just for one night. I want to have you for multiple nights, which sounds kind of romantic in theory. And so, like, she was like, why don't we just do it now? And he's like, no, I want to wait so we can do it right. And then he was like, well, you can give me a hand job. And I was like, that's how it ends. She gives him a hand job. That's how chapter 4 ends. She feels guilty about not having sex with him, so he lets her give him a hand job. I mean, fine? Question mark? That's, yeah, chapter 4. Chapter 5, back in the present. And honestly, it's just a filler chapter. They hang out with Otis. Chapter 6, they're back in the past. Yay! And so, like, okay, so this is, like, the timeline. So they meet, and they hang out, like, and, like, a day or 2 after they hang out, her agency lady is like, okay, you're gonna go to Paris. So, like, a month or 2 later, she goes to Paris for, like, maybe another month or 2. And then right when she gets back from Paris, like, less than a year, he takes her to Aruba. That's just, it happened. They go to Aruba together, and, like, I don't really know anything about relationships, as you can see from my X-Files. Yay. So, in Aruba, that's where they, like, actually have sex, and when she loses her virginity, which, again, like, the author just threw in last second, like, oh, this is a good idea, I'll just make her a virgin to make it more intense, which, like, was really stupid, I honestly think. So, like, they decide to have sex, but this is, like, how it happens. Like, right after, like, not even a day, but right after they arrive on the island, they stay at Luke's friend's house, and Luke's friend has, like, this, of course, it's an extravagant vacation home in the middle of an island that's really fancy and really, really, like, wealthy and stuff, because Luke knows a lot of wealthy people, because he himself is wealthy. So, like, not even, like, a day, but, like, after they arrive at the vacation home, they, like, they're in the backyard, and they decide to go into the hot tub, which, again, doesn't make any sense to me, because, like, islands are hot. Why are you going into a stupid hot tub? But fine. Like, they take off their clothes, and they go in the hot tub, and they make out, and he, like, carries her out of the hot tub and places her on the ground, which, like, well, the ground was marble. It was marble flooring, but still, like, the first time, like, the ground, really? I don't care if it's, like, gold. I don't want to have sex for the first time on the ground. And behind her, there's, like, man-made waterfalls, because, again, the house that they're at is really fancy and rich. Like, there's waterfalls going on in the background, and then they do it. And to me, it made, like, it wasn't, the thing that bothered me about this was, like, it wasn't as descriptive as, like, the first sexual experience or sexual encounter back in chapter 4. Like, it just wasn't as descriptive whatsoever, and that was kind of, like, I was like, it probably, like, this would have been better if it was more descriptive, which, like, makes me sound kind of like a perv, but, like, if this is the first time she had sex, shouldn't that be more specific and more descriptive as, like, all the other times? But no, it wasn't. But another thing that bothered me was, like, it was on the ground. Outside. No. I mean, am I old-fashioned for thinking that? I don't want my first time to be outside on the ground. I don't care if the ground is made out of, like, gold or something. It's still the ground, and that's still disgusting. I'm sorry. So, anyways, after 6 weeks on the island, they leave. And, like, again, that's another thing that was like, what the hell? Like, 6 weeks, really? Just 6 weeks of nonstop sex. Like, why? Who has the stamina for that? And, like, won't you get bored? Okay, so my mom lives on Tahiti, and I've been on that island for, like, I think like the longest I've been there was like 3 weeks straight, maybe 3 or 4 weeks straight. And even like after even like after 2.5 weeks, I'm bored and I'm over it, honestly. You're on an island and all you do is have sex. Like, how do you have the energy for that? Isn't there anything else you want to do? And also, like, how can you stop your careers? Because, like, Natalie is basically at the peak of her modeling career. Nick is a very important businessman. Like, won't that fuck up your career life? Isn't there something else you can do besides 6 weeks straight of sex? Like, honestly, on my honeymoon, I don't think I want to spend, like, more than 2 weeks like that. Because, like, 6 weeks just sounds really fucking, excessive. Like, if I was in that situation, I would get really bored after week 2.5, and I wouldn't have the stamina, and my body would probably be in pain, and it's like, I kind of don't want to do this anymore. This is all we do. Why can't we talk about, like, I don't know, anything that's not a cheesy romance novel? But, like, really, like, I realize I'm, like, overemphasizing this, but, like, 6 weeks just sounds really excessive. How are you not bored on this island? So, they tell each other they love each other after that. And honestly, it's probably not even love, it's probably just infatuation. Because, like, if like in Natalie's case, she's a virgin and if she has like just 6 weeks of straight up sex with a guy, like, of course she's gonna say I love you, and he's probably just infatuated with her. But yeah, just a 6 weeks thing. Like, I realize I know I'm overstating it, but it just seems ridiculous to me. So, Chapter 7 is back in the present. They are at this cafe in Fairplay, Colorado. And, by the way, everyone totally loves Natalie in this town. They just adore her. This chapter is a filler chapter, and you meet some random characters that aren't really that important, but they're nice to have. And so, like, Natalie and Luke, they're hanging out, and Natalie just kind of says, like, hey, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And after that conversation, he's like, I should probably propose to her. Which, you know, like, 4 years, like, that's an okay time, I think. So he buys a ring to propose to her. So then, Chapter 8, we're back in the modeling world. Just the back and forth of this is really, like, it's just something that really, like, legitimately bothers me. But anyways, okay, so in Chapter 8, they're back in the modeling world, and this is, like, after Aruba, and right after Aruba, she basically just moves in with the guy. And so there's tabloid issues because, you know, Natalie is super, like, famous and important, so the tabloids give a shit about her life. Fucking tabloids. So the tabloid headline that Natalie saw that really made her sad was, top model became billionaire's mistress to advance career. And that makes no sense to me because at this time, Luke is not even married. He's been married like once in the past and he got all hurt from that. It's not really a major plot point, but yeah, so like, she's not even a mistress, like, Luke's not even married. But yeah, Natalie is sad about that. And then a couple days later, Natalie's getting her hair done, and Luke just bursts into the salon, and he's like, Natalie, we need to go to the apartment now. It has to do with the tabloid stuff, and there's something that's going to be printed that could ruin your career. Because he would know that. And, like, Natalie, in the middle of her hair appointments, just like, okay, she gets up and she leaves with him. And, like, to me, that doesn't make any sense. Because, like, no, you wait till your hair is done. Like, obviously, I know about hair appointments. The last video I made was about my hair. Like, you don't just, like, stop in the middle of your hair appointment to go off and, like, talk to your boyfriend. Like, I don't even know what she was getting done. She could have been getting a haircut. She would have looked fucked up if she left it in the middle of that. She could have she could have been getting her hair dyed. Again, she could have looked really fucked up if she left it in the middle of that. She could have been getting her hair bleached. And we all know that if, like, bleach can really damage your hair so badly that your hair can, like, fall off. And if you didn't know that, now you do. But yeah, like, she leaves in the middle of her hair appointment. They go back to Luke's apartment, and they're surrounded by all of their friends, because if it was really bad, they're gonna support Natalie. And then, like, so she looks at the... Okay, so Natalie is just sitting there trying to figure... Like, she reads what was said about her, and it doesn't tell you just yet. It actually leaves... Like, the author actually leaves a little mystery for once. And, as she's reading what was said about her, she's trying to figure out, gosh, who would write this about me? Who would say this about me? And then she put two and two together, and she realized it was her really, like, her best modeling, one of her best modeling friends, Martha. And, like, honestly, I completely forgot about this character, because this character was only mentioned, like, once or, like, 2 or 3 times. And, like, nothing really about her. They're just like, oh, yeah, her name is Martha. She's Swedish. That's all you know about her. Like, she's Swedish, she has blue eyes, she's a blonde, and she looks innocent. Which describes a lot of Swedish people, I think. But, yeah, like, that's all you know about this character. She's Swedish. That's it. She's only mentioned, like, 3 times max. I take that back. She's mentioned twice max up until this point. And so Natalie is just really depressed because she's like, no, why would someone I would think my friend would do something like this to me? And the thing is, like, nose. The thing that bothered me a lot about that, and for some reason my allergies are really messing me up right now. Okay, the thing that bothered me about this part was, like, I didn't know anything about this character. I didn't really know anything about their relationship. All you told me was they were friends. That's it. Like, I realized that Natalie feels betrayed, and I'm supposed to feel sympathy for her, but I feel no sympathy for her because I don't know anything about their relationship. I just know that they're friends. They haven't even, like, they've exchanged, like, 1 sentence to each other this entire time. And at this point, it's already chapter 8, and it's like, I know that Natalie feels betrayed. I, as a reader, am supposed to feel sympathy. However, I can't feel sympathy because I completely forgot about this character. This character is, like, barely even important except for this. So there's that. So, yeah, it was her friend who said the following about her to the magazine. Now, Marta was telling the world that Natalie was basically unstable. During the 6 weeks Natalie had spent with Luke in Aruba, Marta, a very close and personal and concerned friend, it says that, but, like, it doesn't feel like it because we barely read anything about her. Marta, a very close and concerned friend, claimed she'd been in a private psychiatric hospital Luke had found for her. She'd been hidden away, suffering from her first nervous breakdown, just like Natalie's mother did. Marta also claimed that Natalie's mental health was the reason for her relationship with Luke in the first place. She'd given Luke complete control of her body, any sexual favor he desired, in trade for a guarantee that Luke would use his money and power to take care of her, ensure her the finest medical care while she suffered these breakdowns. After all, the article claimed it was only a matter of time, which I don't really get. The most painful insinuation had been that the state of her mental health was the reason Luke hadn't married her. Okay, at this point, they've only been dating for, like, 1.5 years 2 years tops. I will say this, though. Marta is kind of a boss for saying all that shit. Like, wow, it takes, like, a real devious bitch to figure, like, just to think about that. And, like, yeah. Wow, Marta, that was actually kind of sneaky. I realize that, like, I'm supposed to, like, this person is supposed to be the villain, but this just, yeah. And also, P.S., something that, like, is barely mentioned in the book except for, like, 1 or 2 times is that, growing up, Natalie's father left and her mom suffered a nervous breakdown, so her entire life she's scared of also suffering a nervous breakdown, so it's a very tender topic for her. However, again, with I have no sympathy for her because that's not really explained whatsoever. It's only mentioned once or twice, and it's like, how am I supposed to feel bad for Natalie if I barely know anything about the mental illness thing, about her mom having a nervous breakdown, about her being in foster care, which, like, if you want me to feel sympathy for your character, you need to, like, describe this and explain this throughout the book instead of just mentioning it once or twice. Like, honestly, the author mentioned this like 1 or 2 times, and now I'm supposed to feel really sad for Natalie. No, doesn't work that way. So, yeah. So, Natalie's like really distraught, and she's like, I'm gonna quit modeling, because, you know, I'd probably think that too if I was in her situation. But then, because she's conveniently with all of her fashion industry friends, this fashion designer is like, no, Natalie, don't do that. Instead, why don't you come work for me in Europe for 10 months and we can like rebuild your career and stuff. And Natalie's like, okay. So she goes to Europe to work for 10 months. And while she's in Paris, while she's in Paris with Luke, but okay, I will say that's cute that Luke will actually like moved his entire life for 10 months to be with her in Paris. Luke said to her, I'm having dinner with a director Tuesday night, he said, naming a well-known multiple Oscar winner. A well-known multiple Oscar winner. Like, they couldn't have made up a name on the fly. They couldn't have said Spielberg. Well, that could have gotten her sued, but still. Naming a well-known multiple Oscar winner. You're not going to tell me who that Oscar winning director is? No? Okay. And also, this well-known multiple Oscar winner wants to meet with Natalie. So, Natalie has dinner with her boyfriend and this well-known multiple Oscar winner. And he says, hey, I think you're really cool. I want to give you a small part in my movie. So she goes to New York to do this small part in a movie. And then, after that, once she gets back from New York after her little movie role, she gets back to Paris and her fashion designer friend is like, hey, I'm going to give you a book deal. Or there's like, someone wants, this entity wants to give you a book deal. Don't worry. And so the book that Natalie is going to get, it's like she's not writing anything, but it's going to be a book of pictures of her. So it's going to be a coffee table book, and a whole bunch of photographers are just going to take pictures of her and put it all into this book, and it's going to be her, what is it? It will showcase her return into the modeling world. Like, the movie wasn't enough to showcase that, hey, just because something mean about her was written in a tabloid didn't affect me. Or, like, you know, the fact that she went to Paris or Europe for 10 months to go model, that didn't showcase the fact that she didn't care what was written about her in that tabloid, really? So, like, let's just put together this really realistic timeline. So she gets a tabloid, and it makes her really sad because it's a whole bunch of lies about her, and it it hit a topic that was really touchy to her. Then after the tabloid fiasco, same day she gets offered jobs in Europe, and she goes to Europe for 10 months to work as a model, and she's successful. And then after that, she goes to New York to get a small movie deal. Then after that, she gets a book deal. Totally realistic. 1 really, really depressing thing, 3 really awesome things, all in succession. Yeah. That's the end of chapter 8. Okay, so moving on to chapter 9, and side note, yes, I realize I'm in a different location, but as you probably saw, I was in my room and it was really, really dark, and I'm just gonna edit all of this together. And at the end of the first part of this video, my dad walked in and he gave me flowers. So that was very nice. But like, it's dark outside now, and I was using sunlight for lighting, and well, it's dark. So anyways, chapter 9. So we're back in the cabin. Natalie wakes up and she's spotting, and that is terrible if you're pregnant. You should not be bleeding whatsoever from your vagina when you have a baby in your uterus. So she calls Doc. Doc makes a house call because he's that type of doctor. He shows up at the house, he looks over Natalie, and he was just like, so why haven't you told Luke yet? And Natalie is still kind of a bitch about it, and she's just like, but I don't know how he's gonna react. And like, really, you've been dating this guy for 4 years now. If you got pregnant on accident, I don't think he's gonna leave you. But anyways, so after he's done checking on Natalie, he's like, yeah, you're fine. He goes downstairs, and then he sees Luke, and he looks at Luke, and he's just like, Luke, why haven't you proposed to her yet? That's honestly how I feel that Doc speaks. Like David McKay. Like, Luke, why haven't you told Natalie, like, why haven't you married Natalie yet? And Luke is just like, well, like, I'm planning on buying a ring. It should be here in a couple hours. And, like, Doc's like, oh, okay. So, Doc leaves, and then he has the ring. And from what I understand, it is a pretty ring. It's a 2-carat diamond with sapphires around it, and that sounds nice. So he goes up into the room, and he proposes to Natalie. And the first thing that she says, she doesn't say yes or no. She says, oh, no. And, like, that's what happened. She said, oh, no. And, like, if I was Luke in that situation, I would have been really depressed and distraught, which he was. He was very sad. But, like, if someone proposes to you, you don't say, oh, no. You either say yes or I'm sorry, but I can't. Like, the way it just, she said, oh, no. Like, that wasn't even a no. It's like, oh, shit. Why? Yeah, so anyways, as you can imagine, he's very sad, and he leaves. And earlier on in the book, in a filler chapter, Otis is like, hey, why don't we play poker at your house? Me and all these other random characters that no one's going to care about that are just kind of here for show. So, like, Otis and the other random characters show up at Luke's house, and or Luke and Natalie's cabin, which, yeah. And so they're playing poker, or they're playing cards or whatever, and Luke's just like, I don't know, Natalie's just been acting really weird, and all the guys look at him, and they're like, maybe she's pregnant. So all the little cogs in Luke's brain start turning, and then he's like, maybe she is pregnant. Oh my gosh, okay, I'm sorry, but Luke, you're a smart guy. You're a businessman. You should know when shit's going down. Like, it didn't occur to you that when your girlfriend freaks out on you one day for missing dinner and goes to the frickin' cabin in the woods, you didn't think that maybe she's pregnant. You didn't think that was a possibility? No. You didn't think, like, why is my girlfriend acting weird? Why did she just leave all of a sudden? Why is she mad all the time? Maybe she's pregnant. That wasn't one of the first things that came to mind, like, maybe my girlfriend is pregnant. No. Like, at this point, it's been a couple days. Honestly, like, from day one, as soon as she left the cabin, he should have thought to himself, maybe she's pregnant. Like, is that so hard? Seriously, these people. But yeah, after that, he goes into bed, after everyone leaves and he's kind of excited, like, oh, I'm gonna have a kid. He goes back into the room, and I found this sweet, even though it's corny and cheesy. And he just, like, he puts the ring on her finger, and then he just, this is the exchange, and I'm gonna try to change my voice between deep and high. Just try to get rid of me, Nat, he teased, and was rewarded by a tired, relieved smile. I wanted to say yes, she whispered. I know. Please don't leave me, Luke. He knew what she was really saying and held her tightly. I'm not going anywhere. Seriously, you didn't think that, maybe my girlfriend's pregnant, she's freaking out because I missed dinner. Maybe she's pregnant. No. Okay, and like okay, I will say this. He decided, like, okay, she's pregnant, most likely, so I'm just gonna let her tell me on her own time. And he did a really sneaky thing, though. He, like, called the doctor's office back in, like, their hometown, like, Denver, and he pretended that he knew that she was pregnant, and the doctor's like, yeah, and, like, told her basically what was going on, which to me is kind of iffy, because of patient privacy laws and HIPAA, but, like, I don't know, like, Honestly, if I was in that situation, if I was the doctor or the nurse, I probably would have assumed that she told him anyways because they are a couple and like they've been together for so long. And if he called and was like, I'm so excited to have this child, then I probably would have taken that as, yeah. Okay, but another thing medical related that really like kind of like pissed me off a little bit was, so the reason why Natalie got pregnant accidentally is because she was on birth control pills, but then she got strep throat, and the antibiotics she took for the strep throat, they caused the birth control to work ineffectively. Like, they caused the birth control to be ineffective. And honestly, like, part of me feels like that's kind of the doctor's fault because, like, as your job as a medical professional is, like, when you give someone medication, first off, you have to explain to them, like, the possible side effects. Second off, like, you have to ask them point blank, what other medications are you taking? Oh, you're on birth, and like when they find out she's on birth control and they know that the antibiotic will cause the birth control to be ineffective, that's their point to be like, okay, so this is gonna happen. I suggest that you either abstain from sex or you use other protection such as condoms. And like, just kind of, you know, little nursing moment for me. Like, that just like slightly bothered me, but I kind of feel as if like even if the doctor was like, hey, use condoms or some other birth control because the oral contraceptive isn't gonna work, then like they probably heard that and they didn't take the advice. So whatever, just, you know, nursing moment, because I'm in nursing school and I say that a lot. So Chapter 10. We're back in the past, in her modeling days, and much to my surprise, her coffee table book of all of her pretty photos was a huge success. I didn't see that coming at all. So, like, in order to celebrate the surprise success of Natalie's book, Luke and Natalie go to, like, Palm Springs, I think, or like they go somewhere to, like, you know, they go to some hotel in some fancy place, and then Luke all of a sudden gets really sick and he needs to be hospitalized. So after like he's in the hospital, Natalie the reason why he was hospitalized is because of pain related to stress. And Natalie decides, like, you know what, I want to reduce your stress, so I'm gonna leave you and go to the woods so I can build us a cabin. I think that your girlfriend leaving you to build a cabin in the middle of nowhere would cause more stress, so I'm just saying, like, but it was a nice gesture. So she leaves to go build the cabin, and that's where Doc meets her, and like she has a whole bunch of other guys like go with her. But this is something that kind of bothered me. It said that in the book, it said that she has a cabin kit and that the cabin was constructed in 3 to 4 days. That makes no sense to me. Like, what the hell is a cabin kit? That makes it sound like you're gonna have like a small, shitty cabin. I'm just saying. And the thing is, it's like it was constructed in 3 to 4 days. Are you kidding me? Like, is that even possible to like? Okay, and honestly, the picture of the cabin that I have in my mind is like this beautiful, extravagant cabin because it's 2-story. It has running water and it has electricity, and like, that doesn't sound like a cabin that you can make in 3 to 4 days. That sounds like a cabin that takes months to create. Like, inconsistencies. But yeah, okay, so when she went off to build the cabin, she met Otis, and like Luke came up to, Luke was like, yeah, I'm gonna go see my girlfriend and go help her out. And they fight a little bit, and yeah, so while she's at the cabin, she gets pretty sick, and then she was like, she gets pretty sick and she's nauseous, and then she discovers that she's pregnant. So like the end of like around the cabin's completion, that's when she discovers she's pregnant. Again, the way the chapters are put in this book are so terrible. Like, the author could have easily like just had chapter 1 be the same, have every of the past chapters up until now, and like this would have tied in, like this ties in a lot better if it was the way that I'm picturing it in my mind. That's kind of hard to describe. But oh yeah, by the way, because this was mentioned like once, this was mentioned like 3 times in the book and we're supposed to give a shit about it, Natalie got picked to be the spokesperson of like this new beauty line or whatever called Siren Cosmetics. And like apparently it's a big deal, but it hasn't really been mentioned that much. It's expensive. I mean, it's an exclusive campaign. But like it's not mentioned at all. We just know that it's there. And I don't even think she goes through with it because of the pregnancy, because like you'll see like what happens at the end. No, honestly, like at this point, like chapter 10's the last time you ever hear about Siren Cosmetics, honestly. So, chapter 9. Chapter 9 and 12, chapter 11, sorry. Chapter 11 and 12 are in the cabin, in the present, even though like one can argue that chapter 10 is kind of in the present too. Maybe it's like a couple weeks before the present. Yeah. So chapter 11 starts very slow and both characters talk about their feelings. But also there's this big barn dance, or like this big town-wide dance that's going on. So Luke and Natalie go along with the rest of the town and everyone's really excited. And again, everyone totally loves Natalie and now they love Luke too. So they go to the town dance, and at the town dance, there is like another dance auction where again the girls line up at the front and the guys auction, like, and the guys pick, and like if you win the auction you can win a dance with the girl. So again, he pays $1,000 to win a dance with Natalie, and all the money goes to Doc because Doc wants to make a hospital that's in the town. That's like kind of important, I guess. So like yeah, so Luke pays another $1,000 like he did at the very beginning of the book to dance with Natalie. And I thought that was really sweet. Excuse me. And, okay, as they start to, like, so they walk home at, like, 2 in the morning because, like, it's a small town and no one's going to jump or kill them, as opposed to living in, like, South Central LA. As they're going home, it starts to snow, and then they dance in the snow, and they kiss in the snow, and it's really, really cute. Then they go up to the room, and then they have sex. And then she, like, wakes up in the middle of the night, and she's bleeding. And again, you don't bleed during your pregnancy. That's just something that you don't do. You're not supposed to do. Like, some women, like, they bleed every now and again, and they have healthy babies, but still, like, if you're bleeding while you're pregnant, that's a terrible sign. So that's how chapter 11 ends. Chapter 12! So chapter 12, just like, they're rushing Natalie to the hospital, and Doc goes with them, as well as Luke, because obviously. And, like, we know that there's a lot of blood in the bed because the author writes in the book, there was so much blood. So there's that. As they're driving to the hospital, Luke is thinking, and then Natalie was just like, Luke, I was pregnant. And it was just like a terrible way to tell someone you're pregnant. They're rushing you to the hospital because you're bleeding profusely out of your vagina. It's like an awkward way. But anyways, like, Natalie's like, Luke, I was pregnant. And Luke was just like, I know you were. And Natalie is just like, I wanted to tell you. And he's like, I know you did, but I was, and you know, good for him for like wanting to let her tell him on her own time, in her own terms. So at the hospital, like Luke and Otis are kind of freaking out. And then so Doc finally shows up. And by the way, this hospital that Doc is at, like Doc, for some reason Doc is like at some random hospital like way far out. Like there's, I guess, little clinics inside the town, but they're like, no, we want to see Doc. So they drove all the way farther to go to this hospital, which, like, okay, fine. But anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, so like Doc finally comes out of like the emergency room, and Luke was just like, how is she? She's fine. And then Luke's just like, how's the baby? And Doc just kind of says, just as stubborn as his mother, which I thought was really sweet. Even though even though this is a romance novel and it's completely predictable, I will admit that part of me for like a few minutes was like, maybe she's gonna, like, maybe Elda Minger, can't stop saying that name, maybe Elda Minger was just like, nah, I'm gonna have the child die. I mean, I would have done that because I'm an asshole, but, you know, Elda's too nice for that. Elda. So the baby lives, and I was slightly surprised by that because, again, I kind of thought, like, maybe she's gonna let the baby die, because I would have, like, had the baby die. That sounds terrible. So, yeah. So, fast forward to the future, and it's like, okay, as soon as Natalie was released from the hospital, they had a wedding. And all their friends were there, all the model friends, and all the people from the town were there, because they got married in the small town. And Otis was Luke's best man, and Doc walked Natalie down the aisle because, again, Natalie's a foster kid who doesn't know her dad, well, whose dad is a deadbeat, and mom went to a mental institution. And so, like, Doc was like, hey, Natalie, have you told him? Like, hey, Natalie, have you told him yet? And Natalie's like, no, I'm waiting. And Doc was just like, you should really tell him. And at that point, I was just like, she's pregnant with twins, isn't she? And lo and behold, couple paragraphs after, she's pregnant with twins. I was just like, I called it, like, as soon as I read that sentence. So, after that, they get married, and then they go to their little honeymoon suite, and they have sex, and then when they're done, and by the way, she's had, like, sex at least 3 times while she was pregnant, which, like, I know it's safe to do, like, I know that it's okay to do medically, but, like, personally, if I was pregnant, I don't think I would want to do that. I don't know. I've never been pregnant. But anyways, like, as they're in the hotel suite after they were done, Luke just kind of looks at her, and, like, they're looking at each other, and she's just like, Luke, I have something to tell you. Oh, wait, here, I'll just read it. Yeah. Luke? There's just one thing I have to tell you. Nothing you can say could surprise me, he said, and he can hear the smile in his voice, and she could hear the smile in his voice. She raised herself on the elbow so she was looking down at him. He opened his eyes, and she saw the unspoken question in his expression. Oh, this just might. So, yay, that is the end of the book, and as I told you, this review is going to be very long. But honestly, like, I was not expecting much from this book. I just, like, books like this, you just know what to expect. It's like a romantic comedy. You know what's going to happen in the end, but you're just kind of there for the ride. But couple things that really did bother me was, like, again, like, I cannot stress this enough, the positioning of the paragraphs. Like, I would have reoriented the paragraphs. Like, that's the number one thing that I had an issue with. Like, it just felt like I was reading 2 different stories with the same characters, or like it was 2 different books, but each book was so small that she just decided to mesh them together, which would have been okay if, like, she just, like, if she reoriented the paragraphs. Just, how do I say this? I don't really know how to say it, but it was just bad. But okay, it felt like I had, like, at the beginning of each paragraph, I felt like I had to switch gears in my mind to remind myself, like, okay, they're in the past. No, they're in the present again. No, they're in the past again. But again, it should have been present, past, past, past. Kind of past, kind of present. You know, the chapter she found out that she was pregnant. Then present, present, present. Like, that's how it should have gone. That's the number 1 complaint I had with this. Number 2 complaint, okay, let's be honest. I knew that there was going to be sex in that. Like, it's a no-brainer. But I was expecting it to be different. I was expecting, like, more than one very descriptive sex scene, but, like, very descriptive sex scene, but there's only one. And, like, they didn't even have sex. They just, like, fooled around a lot. I guess that's what it's called. I'm sorry. I guess that's what it's called. And, like, even the really descriptive sexual scene. Like, it wasn't even when they actually had sex or when she lost her virginity. If anything, the scene where she lost her virginity, that should have been the most descriptive. But all in all, I mean, I read something this summer. I mean, it was an okay book. Again, I didn't expect much from it, but I mean, these books, you know what's gonna happen in the end. It was cheesy and corny. And, like, another thing that, and I'm sorry, my nose is really just, like, my allergies are acting up for some reason. Okay, another thing that really bothered me was, like, things weren't really described or explained. Again, like, when it came to the whole situation with Martha, like, I know that the author was trying to get me to have sympathy for this character because Martha was, Natalie's friend, but it didn't, like, but up until that point, Martha was only, like, described two max, honestly. Like, two, maybe 3 times, and all it said was Martha was Natalie's friend. If you want me to feel sorry for your character and, like, understand that she's hurt or betrayed, then you really need to be, like, descriptive about the relationship, because up until that point, they've only, talked to each other once or twice, honestly. That's it. And, like, by the way, Marta, she ends up being, like, one of those models on, like... So, like, her downfall was she became a model on, like, one of those game shows, which, honestly, I don't think that's that bad. I mean, like, I guess the author really wanted to, like... wanted the villain to get what she deserved, but like that's not even that bad of a punishment, that you're on TV all the time and you get a point at stuff. Yeah, sure, it's a step down from, like, walking on the Paris runways, but still, like, that's not really bad. And another thing is, like, okay, I know that you want me to feel sorry for your character because she was in foster care, because her mom had mental issues, because her dad left, but, like, that was only really described once, and it was never really brought up again or after. Like, these characters are one-dimensional. I fully expected that. The story was cheesy. I expected that. But I really wish that things were described more. I wish that, like, the chapters were set up in a different way, because it really bothered me. And, like, I was expecting there to be more than one descriptive sex scene, because honestly, all the other sex scenes after that were just, like, he held her tenderly, like, yeah. So, this is a very long video, but, you know, I read an entire book and I reviewed an entire book. I'm thinking about doing this again. I have other cheesy romance novels. So thank you for watching my very long video, and have a delightful day.